going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm coming at you with an updated Bystial Dragonmaid deck for the new ban list that was revealed, a couple of weeks ago at this point. And yeah, I hope everyone had a really good holiday. I did take a small break for the holiday season, Thanksgiving, hung out with family, and just took a small break from everything. But now we are back, bringing some content for the new ban list. Of course, we're going to have some deck profiles, and I do plan to upload sort of the best decks of the current format tier list, just getting some things in order for that as well. But yeah, talking about Dragonmaid in particular in this upcoming format, I think one of the biggest reasons to play them potentially, and one of the most obvious synergies, is the fact that Bestials are dragons. Bystial Dragon Link, and just like dragons in general with the Bestial cards, has been seeing like a decent amount of popularity, and Dragonmaids can do it the same way. It's an archetype I really love, so I'm super glad to sort of update it and bring it to you guys in a deck profile for the current format. Before we get into this deck profile, I do want to let you guys know Discord link down below with all of our other social media links. Also, I'm trying to climb the 10K ladder, so if you do enjoy this Yu-Gi-Oh content, you like what you see here, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out and what I do here on the channel to keep providing you guys with high quality Yu-Gi-Oh content. And without further ado, let's start talking about this Dragonmaid deck profile. Alright, so we're going to start off with the best starter in the deck in the current format, and that is actually the 3 Parlor Dragonmaid. Now, I know when I said that, a lot of people were probably expecting me to put Chamber down here because she is normally the best starter in the deck. However, this format with Bestials running around everywhere besides just your own, other people have Bestials in their deck as well. Parlor being the wind attribute is super handy and just extremely good because it means she's unaffected by the Bestial cards, makes her a lot harder to interact with in the graveyard, and it makes it to where in a lot of situations you would much rather see Parlor in your opening hand than Chamber. Now, if you see both, it's still absolutely fantastic. That's kind of the goal, is hopefully you see Parlor and Chamber, because you can do like a lot more stuff with that. I mean, that's seals plus tidying by itself, so that's always really good to have in this deck as an option. Although now you're sort of leaning more on, I'd say, Sheo than you are on seals, for reasons I'll explain later as well, but we are going to maximize 3 Parlor because she is the best starter. We're still playing the 3 Chamber because Chamber is still a fantastic 1-card starter for the deck. And by 1-card starter, what that means in Dragonmaid is being able to access Heraldic Seals with 1 card. But again, you're not always trying to go for seals as much as you were before. Against other matchups like Sprite, yeah, you're going to go for seal most of the time, but for something like Tearlaments, the card is kind of, it can be kind of weird, even though it's really good. It's also weak to Bestial, so you kind of want to avoid seals sometimes. But yeah, either way, Chamber is still a fantastic starter for accessing your resources, and Tidying is also still a fantastic card. In fact, I'd say it's even better this format than it has been for quite some time because of the way Tidying interacts with your Bestial monsters as well. So yeah, Chamber still definitely a fantastic card you want to max at 3. For the big Dragonmaid monsters, I am choosing to play just 1 Lorpar. And this is really weird, right? Because in previous Dragonmaid lists that weren't like the Bestial version or ones made for this current format, you'd always play at least 2 big dragons, sometimes 3 depending on the build. Because they're just super powerful for making sure your engine can grind. But with the addition of the Bestials and the inclusion of much more, like a lot more high level monsters, you can make your changeover more live quite often as well to make Sheo. And you need less of these bricks. They're still really good for bouncing your Dragonmaids back to your hand and being huge beat sticks. But yeah, you don't really need as many because they are, at the end of the day, they're not helping you play. We choose to play Lorpar because he has like one of the better in-hand effects, and him being the wind attribute is also useful for being able to special summon under the wind barrier statue. That does come up sometimes, so choosing to play 1 Lorpar. For Dragonmaid spells, I am on 2 Changeover. Changeover is definitely just one of the best cards in the deck now, and we have upped the count from 1 to 2 from some of the past lists. Just because you want to open it more often, you have a lot more dragons that now makes this live. Even though we've slimmed down the Dragonmaid monster count a little bit, you're still more likely to see this card live than not. It's really good for just like either starting your turn with Sheo, like when you're pushing into a board, or setting it up to be an interrupt for your opponent's turn. And this is also like a really good card that just keeps your advantage engine, just keep it snowballing. We play 2 because even though like DD Crow has definitely taken a back seat for the Bestial monsters, it's still running around, and we really don't want our 1 Changeover crowed. 1 Hospitality, this is a little strange because it's really weird for me to play 1 of this card. It's something you've like never done in the past when playing Dragonmaids. However, Chamber search Hospitality as a way to make your first turn Heraldic Seal. is a lot less reliable now that the Bestials are everywhere, because Chamber is no longer like a one-card starter in that respect. So this card get a lot less good because of the Bestials. However, you still want to play one for when you're like looping your Dragonmaid advantage engine, or for the situations you need it. So while it's a lot less good, it's still a card I would definitely play one of. I think you can still play two of this as well, completely fine. However, I wanted to make space for more flex spots to beat tier. So yeah, Hospitality is something I have put at 1. We still have the 3 Dragonmaid Tidying, because this is still just one of the best engine traps ever printed, and it isn't really hurt by the way Tearlaments play, because like sometimes they'll mill this for you, and you can catch them in situations where they have to use like a Mudora or a Keldo early for one of your plays, and then you can chain Tidying to it and still get value off of it despite Mudora and Keldo. So yeah, sometimes your opponent milling your stuff can be good because of Tidying in the form of Kelbeck and Agito. Tidying also being able to bounce back your Bestials after you use them and be able to use them again is a really good interaction that's really solid. But Tidying is definitely just an engine card we want to max at 3 because it is so good at not only interrupting your opponent, but keeping your engine in rotation. That's it for the Dragonmaid package. On to the Bestial package. We are going to be maximizing 3 of the Bystial Lubellion, because he essentially just gets you to Magnamut, which is huge. Magnamut is definitely just the best Bystial monster that lets you into more of your dragon package, but also the Lubellion can set up Bystial or Branded Beast, and that is a really solid interaction this deck now has. Like Dragonmaid in the past would struggle to get enough interrupts on the board to make something threatening for a first turn, but Branded Beast definitely helps in that aspect. You can set up like Druis Worm, Branded Beast, it's really solid. So Lubellion is a very powerful card that you want to play at 3. Going second, it's not like a hand trap during your opponent's turn in the tier matchup, but it is still a really, really powerful card that in this deck I think you want to maximize so that you can see your Bystial engine. For the regular Bystial monsters, we are playing 3 Magnamut, which is just by far the best one because it searches any dragon from your deck to your hand during end phase. Which is just extremely solid. We have 3 Druis Worm. We're maxing out all 9 because we really want to see these on our opponent's turn as well. These aren't just like good engine cards you can play during your turn, but they're mostly hand traps for the opponent. As we all know, we are stuck in a pretty heavy Tearlament format, and these cards are just absolutely fantastic at making sure they have as much of a hard time to play their deck as possible, because obviously Tearlaments are just super powerful. So we're maximizing all 9 Bystials. They have great synergy in this deck for a couple of reasons. Magnamut can search any Dragonmaid starter, which is really solid. You can make things like a Tomb, which can special dragons from your deck. Just having these as a package as dragon extenders to not only make like Hieratic Seals, or you can make Sheo because they're level 5 or higher. They're just really solid in the deck overall. Yes, they're a little weird in matchups that aren't Tearlaments. Like, they're fine in most matchups still, like Sprite is fine. You can banish your own Chambers as well, or your own Lubellions, or extra Bystials and Graves. So even if you're not playing against tier, they're still fine. But against something like Fluwandereeze, you may want to side out a couple Saronir and a Druis Worm to make sure you have better cards in like a Fluwandereeze or Exosister matchup. For the last cards in the package, we're on 1 Branded Beast and 1 Branded Regained. These are really powerful cards that if you're going to play the large Bystial package, you sort of have to play. Regained is like, if it stays on the field for a couple of turns, you have snowballed so much advantage off this one card, it's kind of ridiculous. It lets you recycle extra deck monsters that you banish off your Bystials. It lets you recycle Bystial monsters either by its draw effect or the effect to special summon them back. And Beast is one of the best interactions the deck has as sort of an interrupt because it combos with Druis Worm quite nicely. Being able to turn extra dragons into pops is just really good, and you get these cards for free in a lot of situations, so definitely nothing to complain about here. They can be bricks, like in your opening hand, but they're still just definitely worth playing. Alright, for additional like flex spots, I'm not going to call the Bystial engine like go second flex spot because they're also engine in this deck, but Bystials by themselves are 9 hand traps for a lot of decks, so besides that, we still get to play a lot of flex spots because the Dragonmaid engine is so small and concise, so we're able to play a bunch of good cards, either go second or just additional cards that help here. 3 of those being Pot of Prosperity. You know, we only have like 3 Parlor and 3 Chamber as our like 1 card starters, so we do want to maximize seeing those as often as possible. A card like Prosperity is pretty much premium for this sort of logic. I wouldn't really recommend playing Extravagance or anything else to replace this. If you don't have access to Prosperity, I would just play either more hand traps or more good dragon starters, like maybe 2 black metal and a red MD. Prosperity is nice for that, but it also helps you find very important go second cards. One of those being this upcoming card that I've decided to play, and this card you could take out for other things. I don't really know how good this card's going to be in the format, but it's historically been very good in this deck for me, so I do want to try it out. It's 3 Super Poly. So Super Poly is really weird, right? Because in some situations, in some board states, it's great versus Tearlament, and then others it does nothing. But recently, there's a couple of boards Tearlament makes where this card is extremely powerful, namely Dweller and Roll Kalos. You can make a Mud Dragon, and that's really good because you stop their Dweller that they probably made blind go first. You get rid of Roll Kalos, or at least you use her effect to bring back and get rid of her for a moment. And yeah, that's really nice. You get a Mud Dragon out of it. It's a pretty solid go second card in that respect. But there's also a board where they set up Elf, Dweller, and Barone if they're playing Diviner. And then you can actually make another card in your extra deck and take that whole board, which is insane. But besides those versus tier, obviously you are able to play quite a few good Super Poly targets in your extra deck to hit just a bunch of different matchups across the board. But also the reason it's always been historically good in this deck is even if your opponent's not setting up too much for you to take, not only do you have a dark in your deck in the form of Chamber to make really easy Starving Venoms, but you can also just take like your Dragonmaid and a big dragon monster in the battle phase, make a Sheo, and just push for game with this card. And you can do some pretty silly OTKs or just win games out of nowhere because of this card. It's a solid interaction card going first. It's a really good go second card. So I'm testing it out, but it's not something you have to play, especially if the format ends up like not calling for it. 3 Infinite Impermanence. This card is pretty solid. I think it's a little weird with the Bestial sometimes. There's times where you want to use the Bestial first, and then Imperm can be kind of dead if you didn't find a place to use it. That's really rare though, because you can sort of save this for Kit Kalos and then use Bestials afterwards. I think it's just a really solid go second card. It gives you something against Fluandereeze, which is definitely picking up in popularity. It can hit a bunch of different things across, the whole spectrum of matchups you're going to play rather than just tier, but it's still pretty solid in that matchup as well. So I think overall it's a fine card to play. You could play Effect Veiler because it gives you more lights potentially. Like if your opponent's not on a light or dark deck, you could put Veilers in your graveyard to use your Bestials, but I think Imperm's just overall the better card. So although another thing I will say is Veiler is also better with your branded Regained. So I think it's up to you which one you want to play. I put Imperm in here. That could change to Effect Veiler with more testing, but generically Imperm's the better card, so I am testing that one for now. 3 Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. So this card is an extremely good hand trap this format, and it's the only Ghost Girl I decide to play, so I'm not playing Ash, I'm not playing Cherries. I'm only playing Bell because not only is Bell versus obviously Tearlament effects, it's good versus Elf, it's good versus, Totally Awesome in those matchups, but more importantly, besides being sort of an aggressive hand trap that can stop your opponent's plays, right now it's a very good defensive hand trap that can stop things like Mudora and Keldo from interacting with your graveyard or the Bestials from banishing your chamber in a situation where you just 100% have to have your play go off. Like, oftentimes I wouldn't say belling a Bestial is great because it just means they still have that Bestial in rotation. And sometimes you just want to play through them naturally. But there are times where you have to use Bell defensively in those situations, and I think she is a fantastic aggressive and defensive hand trap, or really offensive and defensive hand trap. I don't know why I was using aggressive. Bell looks as least aggressive as possible, but yeah, it's another hand trap that I think gives us a really beneficial time against tier. As you can see, we have 9 Bestials and 3 Bells. We're really preparing for the scariest deck in the room, and I would recommend, with how teched our main deck is for that matchup, that you side very heavily for a deck like Fluandereeze. But the last card in the deck is the one Called by the Grave. This is something I've been taking out in a couple of recent builds, but I think honestly it seems pretty solid. Being able to hit tier names with this is very good. And, one of the issues with Called By is it's really weird because of Mudora and Keldo being able to sort of shuffle back your target. But if you're hitting like a tier name with this and they shuffle their own tier name back, you still get rid of the name. So I think overall, Called By is still amazing. So yeah, I think it's still worth the run in a deck that isn't Tearlament. You obviously can't play this in the mirror match, like the Tearlament mirror match, which is why it might be seeing less play. But yeah, overall, I think Called By is still pretty solid. All right, that is it for the 40 card main deck. On to the extra deck. We are playing 2 Dragonmaid Sheo, which is, I think, pretty standard. You never need 3 of this because it's bouncing back to your extra deck. So we're obviously not playing the third so that we can run other really good cards that are found in our extra deck, especially like with the main deck Super Polys. And then 2 House Dragonmaid, which kind of hurts me. I do like playing 3 of this card. However, because Branded Regained works the way it does, if this card's in graveyard, you can banish it for a Bestial, and then Branded Regained can shuffle House Dragonmaid back. You draw a card, and then you have like a 3rd or even 4th house potentially. So Branded Regained really helps you recycle extra deck cards so you don't need to play as many as you did in the past. So you can make room for other cards, which I think is great. So yeah, just 2 Sheo and 2 House. Next up, our link package, we have the 1 Striker Dragon, because you need it to either link your Parlor or your Chamber into this so you can make 1 card Heraldic Seals. And then speak of him, we have 2 Heraldic Seals. Again, you're going for a little less this format, so I don't think it's something you need to play 3 of. You shouldn't need to make 3. It's good in some matchups. It's good against Sprite. It's good against, well, it's one of your better options against Fluanderees. You don't really have a lot of great options into that deck, truth be told, but it's still like a decent card because it searches follow-up, and you can special Magnemute, you can special a Dragon Maid, so it's really solid. It is weird with Bystials running around because you can activate this to bounce something, and they can chain to the cost of Heraldic Seals, banish it, and then you don't get your special summon, which sucks. But overall, I would say it's still a package you need to play in Dragon Maid because it's technically a starter in some situations. If you didn't open Chamber or Hospitality, and you had like 2 Bystials like Druis Worm and Saronir, you can make spheres as one of the ways to get an interrupt, but also access your Dragon Maids. Now, because of the Bystials, we do play a pretty large Xyz package because now you can make rank 6s. I'm choosing to play a Wallow. This card's honestly just bonkers. It's a really good OTK mechanic. It's a graveyard interruption. It's just a solid card. I think you should be playing if you're running the Bystials. And yeah, I think this card is just really solid. You should definitely be playing this. Now, 2 proxies, because 1 card hasn't come in the mail, and then 1, I just don't know the location of it. It's in a deck somewhere, but I can't find it, so we're going to use these as proxies. And we're going to cover them up with images. And yeah, this is a Atum, and this is a Gaia Charger. I just don't know where my Gaia Charger is, but yeah, my Atum's in the mail. Atum is really nice because you can turn 2 Bystials into Atum, and then you're able to special any dragon from deck, which is solid, and then Gaia Charger can overlay on the Atum, which can't, attack the turn it uses its effect, which gives you more options for other plays as well. Most importantly, I think once you're running Gaia Charger, it's pretty obvious we're playing Zeus. This card is fantastic at clearing boards, as we all know, and you can get 4 material Zeus because of your Atum Gaia Charger. So yeah, I think Zeus is just a quite welcome addition to the deck. And then I am main decking 4 Super Poly targets. You can definitely choose to either like add more or cut down on these based on your choosing. Like if you want to run a 3rd house, you can take one of these out, but I think they all have their own like use right now. So I think obviously you're always playing the Garura, the Mud Dragon, and the Starving Venom. These are just like Super Poly staples. If you're main decking Super Poly, you probably have all 3 of these in your extra deck, at the bare minimum 2 of them in the form of either these or these or these. I'm playing all 3 because we have the extra deck space. They all come up in different situations versus different matchups. And yeah, they're all phenomenal cards. It's important to note Garura is also level 6, which is huge because it means Garura plus a Bystial can make one of your rank 6s, and then you can detach the Garura to get a draw. It's all really good stuff. The last Super Poly target I'm choosing to play is the Cordius, which is something that rarely gets played because it actually has such like weird materials. But there is a board state in the game right now that makes this card relevant. It's that board I was talking about with Elf, Dweller, and Baron. You get the Synchro Monster, the Xyz Monster, and the Link Monster. So that's a board that used to be made a lot more at the tail end of last format. Seeing more recent plays from the new tier deck with Orange Light at 1, I've definitely seen like less Diviner. So if they're not on Diviner, you don't have to play this card for sure. But if they are going to shift more to Diviner and Barone as just like a really good monster to end their board with, Super Poly can actually be devastating into that board because they lose their Elf, so they won't have a tier monster most of the time for, their trap cards if they were planning on bringing back the Merly in that board state. And they won't also have, Dweller and the Barone. So you're getting rid of negates, you're getting rid of the Elf, which is problematic altogether. It's a really solid board to Super Poly if you can. So I thought it was worth running this over like the 3rd house, just in case that board is popular. Again, if it ends up not being popular when we see more like tournaments this format, you definitely don't have to play this. But I think right now it's worth it if you're main decking the Super Poly just in case. And yeah, that is going to be it for this Bystial Dragonmaid deck profile. I think I went on a little too long. I did do a deck profile on this deck recently for the tail end of last format, post Darkwing Blast, because I think it's like a solid strategy in this format. It does have its own problems because you're sort of playing into the same things Tier is. Like, you're still running into D-Fissure and D-Shifter, and your deck's overall like weaker than Tier, but it is a really solid dragon deck to play into Tearlament if you're looking for something in the format that's more of a rogue option. I think this is really solid. Only having 6 starters can be a little tough as well, but Bestials are super good for the deck and gives you more plays outside of that. And yeah, Dragonmaid's obviously like a mainstay on the channel. It's one of my favorite decks. I absolutely love their artwork, and you know, I'm a long-time Dragonmaid fan, so yeah, with all that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy the profile. Leave your comments down below on what you think of the deck, anything I'm maybe not running you think I should be, how you would play the deck, and how you think it sort of works this format. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. And with all that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.